Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. My name is Kaylee.
My name is Desi.
Be sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell next to the subscribe button to turn on post notifications. Before we get into this case, we always encourage those who have useful information to any unsolved case, please report it to your local police and sheriff department. Now, disclaimer, this video is not recommended for persons under the age of 18. It will also contain some very graphic details, so if you cannot handle graphic details or are under the age of 18, please click off now.
MMIW stands for the thousands upon thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous women in both Canada and the United States of America. Sadly, many of the MMIW voices are not receiving nearly as much coverage as they should. A new symbol of a red hand over the mouth was made in lieu of the Native sisters who are not heard.
The biggest reason why these women are not being heard is because of the Indian Relocation Act and federal policies. Only 22% of natives live on actual reservation and tribal land. It's a lot easier to host investigations when both tribal and police parties are involved. Unfortunately, urban cities who are not a part of the reservation have very little connection and authority to Native American tribes. With that being said, today we will be covering Selena's Not Afraid's death.
Who is Selena Not Afraid? Selena Not Afraid's full name was Selena Shelly Faye Not Afraid. She was born June 18th, 2003, with twin sister Zoe, and she's the youngest of 5 siblings. Her parents are Jaquelena, big hair, and Leroy, Sheila Not Afraid. Her grandparents were Preston and Cena Bell, Jacob C. and Rosemary Walks, big hair, and Cyril and Flora Not Afraid. Selena and Zoe, like most twins, were attached to the hip. Selena and Zoe were best friends with 2 other twins, Alexis and Katarina Morrison, and they attended high school at Hardin High School, and Selena was a junior. She was 16 years old at the time of her death, living in Bighorn County, Montana, which, for those who don't know, Bighorn County is located in southern Montana, and Selena lived at the Crowe Reservation.
So, hobbies that Selena had. For one, Selena was a very much girly girl. She was also super pretty. She's about 5'9" with long brown hair. She absolutely loved horses. We all know horses are some of girls' best friends. She enjoyed breading, beading, sewing, and baking. She also absolutely loved to be around her friends and family. People, if they were asked about her, they would always say that she had the kindest heart. She had a horse named Wart. Her dream was to be a part of the Indian relay race, riding champion for the River Road relay team. Selena was very, very busy. She was involved in a couple sports, which were basketball and volleyball, and her sister Zoe and her did the jingle dress dance.
For those of you who don't know what the jingle dress dance is, it is a common dance performed by Native American girls and women. The name is metal cones that make a specific sound when dancing. The Ojibwe tribe was first to perform the dance in 1900, and in the 1920s, this specific dance became popular in the Great Lakes region. The background story behind this is that the dress was part of a dream. A medicine man granddaughter was sick, and the spirits had told him to have her perform the dance, and if she did, it would heal her from sickness. So a lot of people believed that this girl was experiencing the 1918 flu, which I think it was the Spanish flu at that time. And today, this dance is a sense of pride among Native American women and girls.
Selena did not have an easy childhood at all. So in 2014, she was only 11 years old, and Selena's twin sister Zoe had committed suicide. Obviously, this was very difficult for her because Zoe and her were best friends. They did everything together, and I mean, it'd be really hard to lose a sibling. November 18th, 2017, a few years later, Selena's brother died at the young age of 23 years old, and he was actually shot by a Billings police officer and her brother's name was Preston David Bell. And it gets even worse. You know, this already, to begin with, absolutely horrible. No one should have to go through that. 2017, Selena's older sister was walking and a car came by and hit her and they fled the scene. She died. Before Selena even died and went missing, Selena's parents had lost 3 kids already. 3 out of 5 kids.
Which is, that's crazy to lose that many kids in a short time span.
That's a lot.
No, but in 2019, her brother RJ was at university and Selena wanted to go to college with him because they were super close, of course, after everything that had happened. But New Year's Eve of 2020, she was supposed to be having a great time. Selena and her friends went to a party and Selena stayed the night at that party.
The following day, Selena, 4 men, and another woman got in a van. They were going to head back to Hardin. They were taking the route where they drove across Interstate 90 when their van suddenly broke down. So they decided to stop between Billings and Harding at mile marker 474, where a rest stop was, and this was at 2 p.m. They wanted to basically stop the van to see what was wrong with it. Truck stop was the last place that Selena was last seen by anyone. And unfortunately, in this part of the story, there's a lack of additional details. And a part of that issue too is just there's not a lot of media coverage for minorities.
So the driver did fix the van issue temporarily, and he had told Selena and his friend not to go in the van because it would break down again, which is very odd. But he did have this idea that his mom could pick up the girls. And his mom lived about 10 to 15 minutes away, so they just sat at the rest stop and waited. So the guy's mom did show up, but she did not find either of them. Why did the driver not wait with the girls until his mom get there?
So I do think that it is very odd that the driver decided not to wait with the girls, especially considering their age. You know, if you were a teenage girl, there's pedos out there that is not very good. I feel like the driver probably felt like, well, since my mom lives close by in this short amount of time, the 10-15 minutes, that nothing out of the ordinary would happen and that these girls would be okay. You know, they had cell phones, so he probably just trusted them. If something went wrong, they would call someone and didn't think too much of a big deal about it. But I do find it really strange that he kind of left.
Yeah, that is I don't know, that's not normal.
So when the mother arrived there, she decided to go investigate the truck stop. In a ditch nearby, Arlana was sitting in this ditch. Arlana looked completely clueless. She did not know where Selena was. When the mother asked her where Selena was, she was like, I don't know. And she did not have any idea of what happened, which is definitely kind of suspicious, the fact that she has no idea what happened. Also, Arlana had scratches all over her legs and her shoes were completely gone. So that definitely seems very suspicious. So obviously 911 was called. The police, when they arrived, someone who claimed to be a witness came up to the police and they interviewed them. The witness said Selena ran to a nearby field from the rest stop, and the woman also says that Selena did ask her to go with her, but this woman declined. Why was Arlana's shoes missing, and why does she have scratches all over her legs?
I feel like that's such a mystery still with this case that nobody's really gone over too much, which is very weird. But I feel like her shoes went missing and she had scratches all over her legs. She could have maybe put up a struggle if this was potentially a kidnapping, if Selena was potentially kidnapped, because that kind of, people are suspicious about that, and we'll cover that later, of course. Yeah. But if she was, she could have possibly put up a fight, because she even says, she doesn't remember anything. She has no memory, nothing like that, so she could have been still drunk. She could have, something could have happened to her as far as like she was drugged or something like that. But it would explain why her shoes are missing and why she had scratches all over her legs.
And then why do you think that Selena apparently ran to a nearby field?
Maybe she was afraid of somebody and she was running for her life. Maybe she wasn't in her right mind and just decided to run from the rest stop and run into a nearby field. We don't really know too much, to be honest.
And why do you think the so-called witness did not follow Selena even when Selena asked?
Maybe she just didn't want to get involved in the situation at all. Sometimes people tend to do that because it's, like, not their business or they don't want to be involved or anything like that. So she just decided to kind of stand back and let this 16-year-old girl go on her own for whatever stupid reason. But police did search this field. They did a 3 to 4 mile radius and they brought dogs, horses, ATVs, helis, and drones to search this area. There was also a lot of volunteers that helped, and her classmates were very determined to spread the word about her disappearance. Bighorn County Police was in charge of her case first, but then other authorities came to help, such as the Crowe Tribe Police, Billings Police, Montana Highway Patrol, even the FBI had came together to search for Selena.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how many people came out to search for her.
Yeah, that's insane.
So, Selena's family's reaction to her disappearance. So, obviously they were severely heartbroken. I mean, this was their daughter, and they had already lost 3 kids before her. They would do absolutely anything for Selena. And by I mean anything, they even camped at a rest stop overnight where she was last seen. Police did search the van that she was riding in to that rest stop. However, no information to this day still has been released. There's still kind of a lack of media attention for this case.
And now going into the theories for this case, the very first theory, of course, is that she was kidnapped and that she was abducted at this rest stop. First of all, she was left alone at 16 years old with her friend in an area that's not considered the best side of town. Many other women and girls have been abducted from the general area, and there was a green Subaru Forester with Wyoming plates found by the police. The person driving that car could have forced her in his car, and many witnesses say they've seen her in different places, of course, but we know what happens with that. If she was kidnapped, why was it just her and not her friend as well?
That's a really good question. It could have been the person that could have kidnapped her, but could have only picked her because, first of all, with her friend had scratches and her shoes were off, so her friend could have put up a fight like you said, and so when her friend was putting up this fight, they determined it wasn't worth it. Versus with Selena, maybe she put less of a fight up. Not really, sure too much about that though, because we don't have any physical evidence, but that could be a reason. The person that could have kidnapped her could have known her family really well, could have known Selena really well, and have been stalking her for a while. That is also something that could have happened, and
that kind of seems very plausible. It does happen that some kidnappers have types over
specific
others.
So the police obviously did check security footage, because after all those witnesses said that they saw her at so-and-so place, they obviously wanted to go and investigate. However, they determined that the sightings were just false, they didn't find any evidence of her actually being there. The police did attempt to track her phone. This is very important information for them to have done that because they would be able to figure out where the party was. The party was on Montana Avenue. Because they were able to figure out where the party was, they were also able to figure out what route the van took to get to the rest stop. However, after even broadening the search in those other areas, the police didn't find anything there, which is very, very weird.
Yeah, it's very, very weird, actually. But on January 20th, 2020, which is a very important date, of course, in this case, her body was found near the rest stop 1 mile into the field. It was missed for days. She did have her phone with her, but her phone was dead. And of course, with this, people did ask about the police dogs not picking up the scent. The police's excuse was that they were not cadaver dogs, just police dogs. So they were kept on leashes because they didn't want them to attack volunteers. And as far as drones and helicopters and why they didn't pick her body up, it was because the weather was really bad and windy, which would have made it hard for helicopters and drones to see her body. Captain Michael Fuss of Bighorn County Sheriff Department says that the police spent up to 12 to 14 hours in Billings doing interviews, and it was straightforward every day, 15 to 18 hours every day. So my question to you is, did somebody perchance dump her body in the time span that the police weren't searching in the area?
So if Selena was really kidnapped, it could have been very possible that someone did dump her body later, which would explain why for days that they miss her body wasn't there, miss where her body was. So that is very possible. It's definitely very strange. So
could the police have possibly missed her body during the original search?
It is very possible that they did miss her body in the original search. Yes, there was a lot of volunteers, and you would expect if her body was only 1 mile away that they would very easily be able to find it. But considering that they said the weather was very windy and bad, it could have made it a little bit more difficult to find her. Also, humans do make mistakes. We are humans, we're not robots, so we're not perfect. So it is very possible that they could have missed finding her body. It is extremely weird though.
I agree with you completely.
And then Captain Fuss, he started talking about how people were talking trash on Facebook. They're saying that the police were not doing the job correctly. He said that this really wore on him as an officer. Police at that time did not believe foul play was suspected. The reason behind that they say is there's no tire tracks or footprints on the ground. So if someone did dump her body, you would think you would see tire tracks or footprints there, and there was not. Selena's funeral was held on Sunday, January 26, 2020. She was buried at the Fairview Cemetery. So many people loved her that there was over 1,000 people at her funeral. Her casket was brought in by a horse-drawn carriage.
That's crazy, my dude. That's a lot of people to show up to a funeral. Next thing is the gas cap of renegades. Group of runners. The gas cap of renegades ran all the way down from Pinewood Reservation, South Dakota for several days. And the reason for this was to raise awareness for murdered and missing Indigenous women. February 24th, Selena's autopsy results came back, and her cause of death was accidental hypothermia. She had no wounds, no scratches, no visible injuries, but despite this, people believe there is more to this case. However, of course, a lot of things don't add up to this. Did somebody potentially leave her outside to die days after her disappearance? This would be one possible plausible reason as to how she died of hypothermia, if so.
So absolutely, I think that could be possible, because if someone did try to kidnap her, or even if someone drugged her, and once she was dead, they could have placed her body out there. That's how she died of hypothermia, by placing her body in the night. Now herself dying from hypothermia is on accident is less likely, because when she went missing, it was around 2 p.m. It was the middle of the day. It was not nighttime at all. The weather was still warm enough.
Yeah, so you wouldn't think she would have died of hypothermia if that's the case. Anything's possible, especially if it's cold enough. It's Montana.
So into intoxication. So this is another theory that people have. Some people believe that Selena and her friend were intoxicated. Obviously, there was alcohol at the New Year's party. Many underage people were drinking. Possibly they were drinking in the van. They could have also been given a drug. First of all, like, Selena wandered off into this field. A normal person wouldn't do that. Her friend was also very clueless after the witness talked to her, and like after the mom asked her where Selena was, she didn't know what happened and where she was, which is pretty odd. There's also still not a toxicology report, still has not been released. There was even a Snapchat story of 2 of the men in the van at the time, out of the 4 men. There was a Snapchat video of them fighting, and there was also people drinking in the car, so people thought that maybe like a fight went wrong and that's how Selena died. Do you think Selena and her friend were drinking in the van, or that maybe someone gave them a drug? Selena's friend was sitting in a ditch confused.
I definitely think they could have been drinking or they could have been drugged. Usually, if you're severely drunk or if you've been drugged, you're not going to remember anything most of the time. You might remember like small bits and pieces here. But it could be the reason why Selena's friend ended up in a ditch confused. It also could be another reason why Selena ended up dead from hypothermia. She could have wandered off and fallen, or she was so drunk that she didn't realize, hey, I'm outside, and stayed out until dark and then died. It surprised me if someone gave them drugs. I feel like what would help more with this is if they released the toxicology report.
I'm not gonna point fingers, but I will say that the people in the van are a little bit weird.
Yeah, no, fucking for sure. They're hella weird. Oh, bro.
And they were grown too, so.
Yeah, and they're hanging out with these 16-year-olds. What a
Like
bunch of weirdos. Ugh. But to this day, Selena's cause of death still remains as an accidental hypothermia. However, as you can tell, there is some interesting details to note in this case, and we would love your input in the comments below, like usual. So with that being said, thank you for listening to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. Remember to always keep your eyes open because you never know when someone's creeping.